community, how's it going? Welcome to another Tuesday education stream. Today we are talking about dialogue trees, so I'm really excited to do that. Real quick, just let us know if video's good, audio's good, game audio's good. I don't want anything too loud or wind howling at you or anything like that, so let us know in the chat. But otherwise, we are going to start rolling and we're not going to stop. So dialogue trees, you'll see that we have this kind of crazy weird looking structure here in front of us, and this is a visual aid as I kind of explain how trees are put together, like are kind of a data tree structure in general, and this applies to any kind of set of data, not just dialogue, but I thought it would be very helpful to kind of walk through this as in the way that I set up the dialogue trees actually. Alright, let me see.
Bam.
Okay, cool.
Audio's better.
Yay! All right. That's why we asked that question. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to look at this tree here first. So I'm going to apologize. I'm going to use some terminology that's like kind of computer techie kind of thing, but it's going to help us understand what we're going to try to do here better. So why a tree? So when you think about a dialogue option and dialogue tree in a video game, you kind of think, all right, I approach this dude and he starts talking and he says, hello. And then you have, there's a greeting and then you have options to reply. So as soon as you start getting different options, that's when you have to think of it as it's branching out, right, along those different things. And then if you choose one, you have another set of options. And then if you choose the other, you have more to go.
Someone already brought up a good question in chat. Why is the tree upside down, Thomas?
The tree's not upside down.
Do you know what a tree is?
Yeah, a tree, that would be like, this would be a bush, right? Oh wait, no, you're thinking of like a trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like this is the top of like, the top of the tree, and then like it goes like this.
Yeah, they're thinking physical tree.
Yeah, I see what they're saying. Yeah, long. Yep, this is the way to go about it. At least if everything I read on the internet was correct, and if my 11th grade math class was. So anyway, so when you have that prompt in a game, right? Dialogue trees are really cool because you drive with choices the experience that you're gonna have. So you can like choose to say yes to a quest. You can choose to say no. You can choose to be friends with a person, to be their enemy. It's really cool and changes like how games would work. So anyway, to start kind of digging in deep here, that opening choice, the very first thing is going to be called is the root. Is kind of the beginning of the tree. It's the top here, and all these logic cubes in this tree. The terminology for them is actually nodes. And so this guy is the root node. It's the beginning prompt choice, the very first thing that's going to happen. And so this would represent something like, hello, and then, hello, how are you doing? And I could answer, I'm doing well, or I'm doing terrible. So these little lines that shape into new nodes, these guys are called edges. So I have an edge A here, you can see edge A, it's branching off into the next node, and I have edge B. So this represents the prompt to my character, and then these represent the choices I can take. And then if I go this direction, I get a new prompt. So this would be the next node, which is A, and then I have over here B. These guys on the same level, they're actually considered siblings, so they're children of the root node here. So that's why they're both red. And we'll kind of explain that terminology a little bit further. So if I'm here, let's say I chose edge A, which was, I'm doing great, how about yourself? And he's like, oh, I'm terrible. What's making your day so great? So there's another question. So I can go off now and have two options presented. I could say, oh, my day's great because I'm doing an education stream. Or my day's terrible because people are posting a bunch of inappropriate levels or whatever. And then I could choose, to go down either option here. And so these guys are going to be children of node A, and then they're siblings, so they're both yellow. Now, this, can keep going and going, and you don't have to just go into, it's not always a two choices, right? So I can only go directly into, I only have one choice, which goes right here, or I could have 3 choices, which separates like that. The big thing here is these are really important. So this guy here at the end, these 2 at the end, these little guys here, these are considered leaves. So they're at the end of the tree, basically. So that means the conversation is going to end there in a normal tree structure. Now, you can actually make your conversations where if I get down here and I've exhausted all options through this conversation, it would pop me up back over here, right? So, and I would say, like, okay, now I can go this way. You can kind of, there's like, Dragon Age Inquisitions, the current game I'm playing a lot of, and there's tons of that where, okay, yeah. I've investigated more about the Tevinter mages, and now it's going to dump me back off into the opening area where I can talk to, Dorian the mage more about, his family or what have you. So
I can only imagine what their dialogue trees look like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's, I mean,
just because they have like different options based on what choices you made in the past, also, so you have like probably 8 different dialogue trees based on what you've done.
Yeah, and actually, I kind of, the way I built this was thinking that about like kind of bringing this further and trying to compensate for that if it was going to end up being big. So I'll show that off too. So leaves here, these are all those end slots. In this example, I just have all leaves end up ending the conversation, and we'll actually check it out in action here. But these guys are, they can be pretty much the reroute if you'd like them to be. As someone did point out, there are grandchildren, or the way to think about them. So it's actually ancestors and descendants. So like if I'm looking at like this node right here, he is a descendant of node B, this guy, and he's separated by like 2 edges. So that's an actual way to think about it. And we actually have to keep track of the leaves and of the ancestors because we're going to remember our selections through the dialogue tree. All right. So
the real question is, can node B1 and node A1 legally marry?
Right. Which one were you looking at? This one and this guy?
No, I think they're,
It's how many degrees of separation.
I know, right?
So let's see. Well, I would probably say maybe. I don't know. So that's navigating the tree, and it helped me a lot organizing it in that way because it became very clear what the way I needed to go through and navigate this. So yeah, it's very, very helpful. Visual aids are wonderful for explaining things and for getting your mind wrapped around it. So let me make sure on my list here. Oh, the only other thing I would, I'm not using it, but it's a good to have to understand is that there's a concept called depth. So like this node, right? This guy has a depth of 4, and that's how many choices it took to get here. So you can think 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's kind of the path through it too. And there's actually a concept of path too, which is the exact route to get there. Depth I think is really interesting though, and can be used in unique ways because you could actually track that if you wanted to think about how many choices in.
Yeah.
Cool.
And this way that you set it up, it's actually super useful if you're making dialogue trees to set it up that way. I've had to do dialogue trees in the past, and having this kind of visual aid setup is just, it's so useful because you lose track.
Yeah.
And especially when you get to the point of, 10 stages of choices, it gets really unruly.
It's like exponentially gets complicated, right? So
yeah.
It's easy, not too bad, and then you get down here and it starts getting like, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening, which we'll talk about too, is like conditional statements. So like nodes don't have to always be accessible, right? This edge can open it up depending on your relationship to the character or if you completed a quest or what have you. So that's when stuff gets really cool and even more complicated.
Yeah, it becomes more like a web in a way.
And I would recommend, these are all empty. These are all just visual. I'm not actually building the tree out, with these logic cubes. There's no logic in here. But definitely pen and paper, doing this prior, and kind of getting an idea of how you want it to, to be built would be a very good idea because it's going to get complicated and get complicated fast. All right, so let's take a look at this in action, what a dialogue tree looks like. It's interchangeable. You can say conversation tree or dialogue tree.
Cool.
All right, so here's my goblin. I'm going to have a conversation with him about Sparkisodes. So I'm going to approach him, and we're going to go. So he's talking at the top. Did you like Spark Episode 1? We can either say, I thought it was great, or it was pretty mediocre, or why am I even talking to you? This conversation is dumb. So what do you think? You take me through this path?
I would not want to talk to this goblin right now. That's what I'd want to do.
All right, we're done. Why am I even... Fine by me, he says, and then our conversation's done. So that would be an example of a direct node off. So I have a 3 node there, right? So imagine that there's another red logic cube right here, and it would have also been a leaf. So it would have ended right there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, having an option to leave dialogue is like always really important because people just want to be done. So what's cool, also in this system, I have memory. So if you get to a leaf, it's going to remember that you've had that option before. So a lot of games do this. So you know, like, okay, I've already used this option before. Especially if you're like a completionist or just want to hear all the lore. Like I'm like that in Dragon Age, where I just like want to hear all the different options.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of times, like the option will disappear and the node will close. That actually happens a lot of times in Dragon Age, or you can do the grayed out option, which allows people to redo it again if they want to rehear it. So I'll say I thought it was great. You're such a suck up. What did you like about it? So I get 2 nodes here prompted. So, and you can think of these guys, they're both edges, is the way to think about it. This is the branch, which are going to take me to new nodes. So let's see. It was surprisingly funny. Who knew they could act? Or Butchie the Clumsy Surgeon.
Well, he was the star of the show.
Butchie?
Oh, yeah.
All right, okay, let's see what the goblin thinks. Now, you obviously don't know anything. So, and that was a leaf, so we were done now there. So let's talk to him again. Let's say we thought it was great. So this is still, it knows we haven't exhausted all the options underneath its branch. It knows we haven't reached all the descendants yet.
Okay.
So I thought it was pretty great. And then Butchie got closed off. All right, it was surprisingly funny. Who knew they could act? Any prompts? Who was your favorite character? So now he opens up 3 more nodes here. So Hatch, he's smart and has a bow. Davin, he's from the future, sort of. And Void Corruptor, I root for villains. Hatch is obviously the best character, so that's what we're going to say. Oh, okay. So the guy can barely act, apparently. Okay, let's say I thought it was pretty great. And let's see what he says about Davin here. Oh, he's an idiot, so that's not really making the goblin happy either. As you can see, also the goblin's emoting through these different things, and we'll talk about that. All right. Surprisingly funny, and I think I only have 1 more option here. Okay, Void Corruptor. So I root for villains. Oh, the goblin, he's a fan of he's a fan of villains. So there you go. Now he cheers. So I got to the leaves of every single descendant, which means like I saw all the dialogue options in here. So now this is going to be grayed out. And then, you know, I can talk about how mediocre I thought it was. This is a good example. So you're in luck. Episode 2 is all about them. This one, you see, I only have a direct node, so I don't give myself another branch. It's more of a just moving the dialogue back and forth. I don't believe you that episode 2 has them. Go away then. He's not a very nice goblin. So there you go. So that's moving through the dialogue tree. So I'll kind of show you what I'm doing here for this, and then I think we're gonna build one from scratch because it's actually really not too bad. And we'll just do a brand new conversation together, and that'll be fun with chat, I think. So in my player brain first, we'll just take a look here what we're doing. Most of the stuff got deleted. All simple. I just made him a global player, pointed a global variable player to him, and that is actually it on that page. And then I have just whenever he returns back to this page and make sure conversation is over, which is the way that I prompt it to get out of the conversation. Dialogue here. So this is when my guy enters the conversation, and this is all he does is actually exit it, basically, is what he's going to keep in his brain, and all the prompts and everything like that is actually going to be in this logic cube. Let's take a quick look here at the goblin. It's just him waiting for you to engage with him, and then he becomes your target for the conversation, and then he'll switch over, and then he knows that this is going to be my dialogue tree, and then I'm going to activate that brain. So a couple of things on here where I've decided to go with an option of an actual like independent like logic cube separate from my character. And I was thinking about that as like most games, it's going to change dramatically as you update your objectives and things like that. And I imagine you having several of these, maybe like in a brain channel or something. And as you go through and reach objectives, his conversation options are going to change. And so he's going to update the dialogue tree that he has available. Another reason I really liked having this separate is if you like add a brain, let's say, to this guy, all of a sudden all the variables that I'm going to be using are going to be actually on this object instead of independent on this cube. And so if I'm having, a bunch of these and I want to not overuse or, create unique variables for every single one, I don't want to have that overlap, and it'll end up increasing the chance of something going wrong. So actually keeping the variables onto this object as opposed to putting them onto him, I thought made a lot of sense. But it's going to depend on the type of game that you want to make. All right, so dialogue tree. So the way that we have this organized is we're actually just moving and paging through the actual nodes of the tree. So I start off here on the root node, and I just have that, that prompt right here. Did you like Spark episode 1? And he's actually emoting. The choice to do this by pages was largely dependent on the fact that different text in different, is going to need different emotes and different countdown timers for how long it takes them to talk. And I thought that was all kind of packaged neatly in my page. And of course, you turn off all the behavior. So we're paging through the tree. And and I'll kind of explain all these different conditionals here. You can see, so this is the displaying the edges. So I thought this was great, or it's either grayed out or it's not. What I'm using all these booleans for here is they're actually identifying the choices that I made through the tree. So that's why. And these are I only need to base this off the actual leaves of the tree. So this is when the conversation ends, or I get an exhaustive prompt and come back. So if I'm setting these as true, and once they all become true, then I know I've done everything I can out of this this edge. And that's when I know to gray it out. So let's go here. All I'm doing for selection is actually doing a, you can see I just have the actual button just attached to the text there. So, oops, okay. So like, for instance, when I press A, and I'm just going to keep that all in here, when A gets pressed, I'm going to switch over to node 1. And then I get the new prompt. So there at the top of the screen, he's going to emote differently. And then I get set for all the other different ones and the branching. And so I go through this whole logic cube basically through the different nodes. So there's like node 1, there's node 2, there's node 3, and then the way that I decided to do my naming was just actually like decimal point in the next number in that choice.
I actually do the same thing with my dialogue trees.
Nice.
I show the first choice, decimal place, second choice, decimal place, third, decimal place, fourth, fifth, sixth, so on and so forth. The other thing I would recommend, going to page 1, going to like the very top where you have all those different, line number 4, where you have all those different booleans, is if someone here is building a dialogue tree that's, say, 10 choices deep, it gets really unruly to have that many. It might start getting really unruly to have that many booleans that you're checking for on one line. So you could also instead move to every time something happens, then a number variable increments by 1, and then once that number variable equals like 8, if you have like 8 total things you can do within a dialogue tree, then then that thing becomes grayed out. So if you have like a lot of choices and it gets to be too unruly with booleans, there's another option you can use with the number variables.
Yeah, the reason here, so like number variables wouldn't know specifically like the options, and I'm like going all the way down to that specific option, right? So that would be like the difference. Is these are getting created anyway for like every single edge is a unique one so I have it getting grayed out at every level. And so if I did the number one, You could do it, but these are going to get created anyway to just do that one singularly, like by individually.
Okay.
So that's like, I don't know how numbers would affect that or not. You could do it for this big one, but then on the other individual levels, I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, I mean,
because
you have to
it grays out as it moves up the tree.
Yeah, you would probably do that for like the macro ones, the ones where you are looking for if like all 15 choices have been made, then you could, but you have to set up quite a bit more to have those number of variables working.
Yep. So what's really cool about the naming scheme here with the 1.1 or 1.1.1, 1. So like you can see, so these guys are all children of the first node and the second, are the first node and then the first option under the first node. So they're the first node of the first node. And then that's when it splits into 3 there. So you can see that they're siblings. And then this guy was a sibling of this one actually as 1.2. And he ends early, so that's why he doesn't have the third variable. And then, so let's go to a page now that ends and dies, or has an option. So actually, we can see that here on the first one. So, okay, so here. So node 3 was only 1, had a depth of 1, so it only took me 1 and then ended. So press Y, we're going to say edge 3 equals true, and that's when I know I've selected that option. And then we're going to switch over to page 3, right? So this is when he goes, fine by me, and he greets, and then the conversation ends. And that's when I switch that variable on for my player. And then when I go back here, back to the root node, that edge 3, it's going to be the conditional right here. So now from now on, that is true, and it's going to gray out. Otherwise, it'll be white if I've never selected that before. But because of all these variables that I am keeping track in here, that is the reason why I have a separate logic cube, and I didn't want to add them to my goblin. Mainly because these could get pretty unruly, especially if you're trying to keep them all in your character and you want to swap different dialogue trees and options like that. So keeping them like actually on this object I thought was smarter than actually keeping it separate. So page through here, let's look at one real quick. So this guy, it was surprisingly funny. Who knew they could act? So that option is A pressed, and now switch over to node. So this one, right? It doesn't need to keep track because I'm only going to keep track of the leaves. So when I get to the full end. So let's go to 1.1.1 or 1.1. Not quite there yet. Again, so here's the 3 edges of prompt, 0.1.1.1, 0.1.1.2, and 0.1.1.3. And you can see when I switched over. So it's actually, I mean, it's just a lot of paging through the different options. Which is, it's actually really easy. Like, it's something that's complicated, but once you're organized about it, I think it can be implemented in a really great way. And what's great about pages, right, is that you can sit on here, all the other behavior kind of disappears and it takes into account that page. You're able to sit on the line of dialogue and have the emote and adjust the time countdown timers depending on the actual dialogue getting used. It's pretty handy. So I think that actually, that's like the general gist of it, but I want to kind of build one from scratch together. So that should be really fun. And we have plenty of time to do that. So I can choose, we'll do it in this world just in case I need to reference anything, in case I mess up and I'm like, what did I do? So, but we'll do everything off. So we'll start brand new character, brand new goblin, or whatever character. This is going to be already off. Okay, cool. So let's drop in a character. Let's just do an Astro Miner because he's cool. And he'll be we'll put a third-person adventure brain on him. And just so he's not, we'll make him look that way. All right, and who should he talk to?
I think you should talk to a sandfish.
All right, let's do it. Sandfish. Oh, or maybe big sandfish. We do not want you swimming. And for the purposes of this too, I'm gonna make you fixed. Just so you float in the air. Okay, let's just make sure everything, so I got control of him, and you got this cool sandfish. Nice. It's like a good face. You can just put this on top of like any character, and you just got a fish face.
Yeah, I've
done that before.
It's awesome, actually.
Nice.
Highly recommend it. Give people fish faces. It's great.
Okay, so we'll start them here. Let's go in my guy's brain. I don't need that. We don't need any of these, and we'll just keep the interact. Nice. Okay, cool. And what we're gonna do is add a new page, and we'll just say dialogue. Okay, so we'll switch this page when we enter dialogue. We're gonna actually do the switching on the other character. It can be either one, not a big deal. So on this, the main thing I need to put in here is, so anytime I want to be done with a conversation, I can just hit B and I'm done. So we're gonna give ourselves an exit strategy, B pressed, and we're gonna do several things. The last thing is gonna be switching back to the other page, but we'll get that line on here first. Previous page. Okay, and we're gonna also create or use, because we already have it created, we're gonna use a conversation variable to be pressed or global conversation is over. Conversation over. Okay, so either one of those are gonna trigger that where he reverts back. Cool. And while we're in dialogue here, we're also going to just make sure we are turning, let's see, movement, turn toward, and we're gonna set this guy as my target. So this is just making sure we're oriented correctly. Okay, you. Interacted. When my fish is interacted, we're gonna do a bunch of fun stuff. Okay. So up until that point, actually, so before he's interacted, we are going to make sure he's turning toward, we're modifier, toward global player. We're gonna use player. Let me make sure I set this guy. I did not yet. Let's make him a global player. Equals me. Boom. Okay. Turn to our global player. All right, when he's interacted, we're gonna do several things. Main thing is he's also gonna switch a page. Switch page. And we will just do next page. Okay. And really that's basically it. We don't need to do anything too fancy. He doesn't need to wave at us or anything like that. Okay. And then on this page, we're gonna do when page entered. We're going to set a new dialogue. My dialogue is going to equal, and I'm going to actually put in a logic cube. So that's going to equal. Then we're going to also activate that logic cube. So multi-brain here, activate brain. Okay, so he's broken right now. Let's bring that logic cube in. Da-da-da-da. There we go. All right, so this is going to be his dialogue. And we'll call it fish dialogue. Okay, so my dialogue is going to equal this guy. And we're going to make sure we activate my dialogue. Okay, cool. And this should be empty. All right, so let's just make sure this works so far. So I approach this guy, he turns, yeah, okay, cool. I talk, I can't, let's see. Oh, he didn't switch out. I switched out, he didn't switch yet. Okay. And let's see here. So when we're going to interact. When I interact, let's actually do this right. Okay, let's see. When interacted, global player, we're gonna set target. It's always kind of hard to read these, right, when there's two object variables next to each other, but it's global player's target. So this is target is a global variable of the global player. So just keep that in mind, but you can actually put those together like that.
Mm-hmm.
So global
you can
player
even do global players
target something.
Yeah.
Is me. Okay, cool. So global player target equals me, and okay. Now, when I exit a conversation, I want to make sure that my target, switch page, and we'll just say previous page for now. Okay, so that should allow him to get back to. Okay, let me look real quick. Alright, so I'm interacting. Turn toward, interacted, my global player's target equals me, and then I switch to the next page. Page entered, my dialogue equals that, and then I activate this brain. This guy should have nothing on it yet. And we're gonna turn that off. Okay, and let me just make sure here. So target, when I be do pressed, and switch page. I'm not doing something right there, but we'll look at it in a little bit. Okay, so let's think about this tree here and start building this. So very first thing I want to do, I'm going to do the first page. We're going to do the root node.
Did you set the global player to be equal to that guy?
Yeah. Yep, right there. All right, cool. All right. So, oh, I got rid of the name. Okay. Let me put something actually in here. So first thing we're gonna do, let's just do like that prompt right at the top of the screen. So chat, what's the first question or thing that the fish is gonna say to me? And we'll put that in here. Let me, I like putting stuff in bold, so we'll do that. And we're gonna say it's gonna be at, we'll just do at the top. And we'll make it extra large so we can all read it. Oh, were you able to, when we were doing the dialogue, right, you took the frame off?
Yep.
So they could see? Okay, cool.
All right, the fish just starts out by saying,
Hi guys. I like it. Hi, guys. Cool. And I don't know all the fish emotes. They probably haven't agreed, I'm thinking. Okay, so let's see if this works. Hi guys. Cool.
I don't think the fish has any emotes.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'll just take it off. Okay, cool. All right. So now he says hi guys, and we're gonna have also the two edges now. So what are we gonna say back to the fish?
I like two of the questions, but instead from the perspective of the person
fish. Or,
talking to the fish.
Okay.
So
how the heck are you talking?
Yep. How are you talking, and how are you live outside the water?
And we're gonna put these. If you want to take the frame off.
Screen bottom left. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
All right, the second one. What's up, tuna?
A lot of typing. What's up, tuna? What's up, tuna? Okay. Cool. So now we're gonna have. Oh, I needed to. Okay. We're gonna do. Also, this should work hopefully. I forgot to add the input in there, but we should be able to do an icon next to it.
Go to objects.
gallery picker icon. And we'll do X. Oh, right at the end. All right, cool. Okay, see what that looks like. Awesome. So how are you doing and what's up? So right now if I hit A and X, it's not going to do anything. So now we need to like program that in there. Okay. So A is going to be our first node. Oh, that is the not the controller A. These are two different A's. That's an icon A and then that is a controller A. So we're going to set these two up. So when A is pressed, we're going to switch pages. Okay, A pressed, we are going to go, so we're going to consider A pressed, we're going to make that node 1. Switch page. And what we're going to do here, I'm going to just throw ignore tile, and we're going to rename this to node 1. So I've thrown ignore on there, so the page remains. Because if there's nothing on there, it's totally empty, it won't keep it.
Right.
So there's that. And I like to name the pages first because then I can go in and find it real fast. So we'll switch page and we're gonna do node. You can see my old stuff is still in here. A press node 2. Okay, cool. And let's throw, okay. So what is he gonna say in response now to how are you talking?
Good question.
For both of them. So I need answer for how are you talking and what's up tuna.
So is this the one for what's up tuna?
This is for how are you talking. I'm a magical space wizard.
No. He says, I don't know. Or he says something fishy's going on here.
How about both? I don't know.
Or, oh, I like that one. I was going to ask you the same thing.
With my mouth? Oh. I was going to ask you the same thing. Cool. And node 2, that is going to be in what's up tuna.
I like the suggestion of, I'm actually a very large goldfish.
That is a big goldfish. Very large goldfish. He's really excited too. Okay. Let's take a look at that. Boom. So how are you talking? I was going to ask you the same thing. And we don't have any additional prompts to do for that. Oh, I think I'm not moving my player brain over yet. It's the one thing I'm not. When interacted, I need to also, I don't think my global player's brain ever changes. That should do everything I want it to do now. Yep, now I can't control anything. Cool. All right. So going into here now. Okay, so what am I saying now in response to these guys? So we'll do this like two answers per each question that he had for us, or his response. So I was gonna ask you the same thing. So what do I say to that?
So far I was gonna ask you the same thing.
Yeah. I like the with my mouth though, but my guy can answer that. I was gonna ask you the same thing. We'll go with that. With my mouth. Dummy.
Dumby.
Dummy is
D-U-M-M-Y.
There you go. Dumby.
Dumby sounds like a great name for an animal character, though. I'm gonna remember that. Dumby. It's my good friend Dumby.
So that should work. And we're gonna need one more. And let's go, we're gonna, let's steal this X. Okay. So one more response to that.
Someone just suggested, how about he just says, I don't know.
I don't know. How about, I don't know, ask the coder.
Sure.
Why not?
With a TH also instead of a THE. Ask the coder.
Oh, dang it. Ah. If only we had editing variables. Ask the coder. Okay, cool. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we have both, see, you have node 1 and node 2. And so node 1 is what we just put in all those guys. One thing I like to do is, this is going to be the actual countdown timer here for like those prompts. So I want to give my guy time to actually read that before I'm like allowing you to just hold A and press through everything. I mean like that for people who want to skip. So, you know, I was going to say the same thing. That's not super long. I'll just do like 1 second. So after 1 second, these will show up on screen. I'm going to actually be able to make those selections. And controller is over there. Okay. A, and let's do another line here. We'll do X. Pressed. Okay. And so what we're gonna do is one of these is going to be the end of the conversation. So we'll show what a leaf looks like. So with my mouth dummy, right? So maybe the fish didn't like that, so that's gonna end the conversation. So we'll say that, and he'll have a retaliation, and then we'll be done. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna switch page. So we'll give him a chance to respond. Obviously, you can like end dialogue with what you say too. Like they don't have to respond to you. So that one is our A choice here. So we're gonna do a new node. Rename node 1-1. Boom. Okay. And right now, let me put that there real quick. Okay. And then what we're gonna do is with my mouth dummy, and we'll just say you're the dummy. So they don't like each other. You're the dummy. And then we'll do a countdown timer of 2 seconds. And we're gonna say that global conversation over becomes true, which is gonna kick us out of the conversation. Equals true. If you remember, that's set up in my character's brain. Now, one thing I do need to make sure is, so on here, right, it's gonna kick them back out. I do need to do a few things when I come back to this page. So page entered. First thing I want to do is make sure global conversation comes back to false. So we don't, when we try to enter a conversation again, it doesn't keep happening. And on here, we're going to make sure, so target is going to switch back to previous page. And we also want target dialogue here. My dialogue, we're going to switch that back to the root node. So when we talk to him again, he's going to start with all those prompts for us. So let me go here to values and text, and we're looking for root node. Root node. Okay, so now that'll switch too. So we'll correctly exit. Perfect. You're the dummy. Okay. And here is what was making that error pop up, which is the switch over to page node 1.1. So node 1.1 is right there. And we want to remember this choice, right? So what I did is remember, so this is an edge, is the way that I think about the choices off my branching tree. And this is edge 1.1, which goes to node 1.1. You can actually do a different naming scheme, but I think it's really clear if you just keep it simple like that. So now I'm making this true. So as soon as I make that selection, it knows that is true. We're going to switch over. Now, this guy, so the prompt that we're making is right here. So we want this to do something different when this is true. And this is just displaying that we've selected this already. So we're going to throw an else line under there. We're going to say, first actually what we're going to do, we're going to copy that so I don't have to retype that all. There we go. And the only change here is we're going to throw on a color. So when that is true, we're going to make it gray instead of the default white. Just like that.
Cool.
So let's test to see if that works. So talk to this fish. Hey, hi guys. How are you talking? I was gonna ask you the same thing. With my mouth, dummy. You're the dummy. And conversation ends. And now when I jump back in here, oh, see, so I gotta make sure I have one thing that's not right with my reset. So he is obviously not getting back to the node. So let me check here. So switches last. So target switches page, previous page. My target. So target my dialog. Switch page at root node. So let me make sure. It should be root node. It is not because the name got forgotten. At root.
At oot.
Oot node. Boom. Okay, that should set him back up now. All right, how are you talking? I was gonna ask you the same thing. So you can see there, that's the work of the countdown timer going, that prevents the choice too. So that's like really helpful and gives you a chance to actually read the dialogue. With my mouth, dummy, you're the dummy. All right. Oh, see, and I gotta also, the way I'm working this is I actually need to deactivate that. So let's do that too. So you have to remember to turn off everything that you turn on. So that switches off. My entire dialogue is also going to deactivate.
I guess another way to think about a dialogue tree is every time you make a choice, you switch another light on. So at the very end, when you're exiting the tree, it's like, oh my god, there's 50 lights on. We got to turn these things off.
Shut down. Yep, exactly. Yeah. You got to hit the breaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now we're going to deactivate that. And then every single time he switches back over, we're going to reactivate. Okay. Now, hopefully, there's not one last exit thing I forgot, because all I want to show is the grayed out option. Okay, so now I jump in. How are you talking? It should remember I've chosen with my mouth dummy. So there you go.
Yay.
So, and then if I go, I don't know, ask the coder, it's not going to do anything because I haven't programmed that in there. So it's, I mean, from scratch, it actually doesn't take too long. You just have to be organized about how you're doing it. But like paging through the options, so you can have what, up to 100 pages more? 1,000?
However many you want, really.
Yeah, that's right. Pages don't have a limit. It's 1,000 lines per code in each one.
I don't know what the limit is. I'm sure our engineers could tell us, but it's high. Yep. And I'm sure Messcat in chat could tell you about the time he used hundreds and hundreds of pages.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. But what's cool about it is you're able to really quickly like call them. These could probably get a little unruly if you have like 100, right? 100 nodes. But that's a pretty big and complicated tree. I think for most people, if you end up getting to a size of this one, this was actually pretty engaging for a conversation tree, and we're only at page 13. But that's how much of a difference, right? Having those different options and being able to investigate that through. Yep. And the length, right? Like, so I only have to set up, if I'm building a game, I only have to set up this scene once. Yeah, I get to interact with this character for 4 minutes instead of 1 minute. Or even if I had a text box just float above his head, that's literally a 5-second interaction versus holding the attention span of the player here longer and, and actually adding depth, and kind of, it's conversation trees are the place where you can build out your world and make it interesting. I think so anyway. Really into, like you guys have seen with my speechcraft stuff and other conversation like stuff that I've worked on that like I'm really passionate about, like dialogue and how much of that creates immersion in your like in your creations. So really really cool.
So Mescat has gotten to the most pages he's ever done is 16,384. So as long as in one conversation you don't have more than 17,000 options, then I think you should be fine. But even if you have more than 17,000 options, you should be okay as well.
We wouldn't even be able to build an eighth of that tree using logic cubes.
Yeah.
So that's
true.
pretty huge.
You can just make a text-based adventure. You can make a 40-hour long game text-based adventure that's just one logic cube.
Yeah,
probably
easily.
Yeah, probably could actually.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be easy. That'd be a lot of page switching.
That's what I always do whenever it's just a cool thing I thought I'd share is like whenever I'm learning a new language, first thing I always do is make a text-based adventure. It helps me understand like how variables work. Text is really easy to understand. So for those of you who are newer to Project Spark and you just want to start understanding like how to build stuff, try and make a text-based adventure, which doesn't really require too much code. It just requires some understanding of variables.
Yeah. I was gonna
which this is like the start of a text-based adventure.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is. I was gonna mention, so what's really nice about this format too is like you don't want to like overwhelm a character. So like I think Dragon Age at the most they give you 6 edges or 6 choices in a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on here, if you limit it to like 6, your pages won't ever get so unruly. I think you'd get at the maximum 30 lines in a page, and that allows you to, if you keep it that low, you can page through them really quickly. If you start getting into 100 or 80, I think it's over 80, it'll start slowing down, which makes it hard to navigate brains. But like I can go through really quickly through this brain actually, and this kind of setup keeps them pretty light. So yeah, sweet. Somebody has a new game idea. That's exactly what I'm going for. Because I've not really seen people like do these very often.
I know.
Which is insane to me because I think they're really really cool, like dialogue trees, and they're really common in like in games. So.
Well, because a dialogue tree, just like a text-based adventure game, requires a lot of pre-planning. You have to sketch that stuff out and figure out what the course of action in the dialogue is. It's a bit easier when you're doing something like talking with this fish with maybe 6 lines of dialogue or so. But when you're going for a fully immersive thing, then you probably don't see as much because it does take a lot of planning.
Exactly. I'm just gonna keep adding some interesting things that our fish can say. Well, we have 5 minutes, so we're pretty close. We're pretty much right there.
Yeah.
Is there any like tips and tricks or anything you like have thought about doing?
Not really. I mean, the only tip I would say for everyone new to Project Spark is honestly, if you don't know where to start and don't really have a game idea yet and just want to understand how code works,
text-based adventures.
Yeah, like a text-based adventure really helps you understand like all of this stuff. I mean, listening through this tutorial that you've probably just spent the last hour listening to already anyways, you now know how to make a text-based adventure game, just adding more layers on top of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like, I mean, just going through this, you get a good understanding of like how our brains work in the paging. You get a good example of like input and you even get to experiment with like display, even just using the default like screen location stuff without using vector. Like you can get a really good, like eventually you can do more complicated, right? Like you can do a radial menu for doing your selections, which would be cool. I really like the Skyrim, like just moving through like and highlighting different ones and choosing between. I'm planning on incorporating this system into like my whole speech graph world or whatever as that's getting more built out. One thing I didn't show.
Do you want to also, well, if you have time, a good suggestion from chat is maybe quickly showing how the second time you talk to the fish, it says a different greeting. Instead of like, hey guys, it says like, oh, you again.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of games will do that where there's like an initial like greet one and then every other time it will default. So yeah, I can show that real quick. One thing real quick before I do that, just because I forgot. You can definitely do like just how to do a conditional is really, really easy. So like on in this goblin conversation that we were looking at the very beginning of the stream, I had an option. So if I exhausted every single edge, so these are all the leaves at the end of my tree, basically. So if I reached every single one, then I would get a new dialogue option would appear, right? So he would have a fourth node that was hidden, and then the option basically is just the thought of talking to you is exhausting, and then you just leave the conversation. But that literally is like the way I say literally a lot. Sorry, I'm probably one of those people that like it bugs a lot of people for that. But that conditional is really easy is set up like that.
Very cool.
With and you can make it where if I'm an enemy with this person or if I'm an ally, all of those things you can incorporate into this system. All right, so I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And okay, so looking into hi guys. Okay, so root node. So originally he's gonna say hi guys, right? But what we'll do is he'll say, oh, it's you again. So he'll say that after every time. He'll say this once, and then at that point, he'll switch to, oh, it's you again. And a simple way here is we could just do a, let's see here.
You could do boolean switch, you can do number variable.
Boolean switch would be really easy. Well, I think we'll just do that. We'll do boolean, we'll do introduction. Or something, or first time, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so introduction. So he's gonna do that, and then when we'll just say else.
You need to make it a child line to
That's
use
right.
else.
Yeah, it won't show up. Else, okay. So now he's gonna have those two different ones, and all we need to do is make sure we turn introduction.
Really, with any button press.
I want to do this because it's going to start false, so I'm going to do it like that. And then, so we'll say like it's more like introduction completed. And yeah, all we have to do is add it. We can do, we'll just put it right here. Introduction equals true. We'll just do any button press. And then that'll be up before, so that line will run before I switch off the page. Cool. Alright, that should work. Let's see it in action. Okay. Oh, button press is gonna go when I
right.
feed it. Talk to him.
Yeah, you probably do want to put it under something.
Yeah,
one of those things.
I'll do it under here. La-da. We'll switch to node, and we'll do the exact same thing on this one.
Cool.
Okay, and kill. Hi guys. Okay, I was gonna ask you the same thing. You're the dummy. Blah blah blah. Okay, now he should say, "Oh, it's you again." And then there you go. So that's how you can switch something out. And then all I would do, so again, if you have, an objective, right, and you want to switch his entire conversation tree out, I would just switch the way that I have it set up is his dialogue. He adds it, and I would just change this and have it point to something new when the objective updates. So
I see. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll switch over to his new tree. There you go. Mainly because of how you wouldn't want to try to do two parallel root nodes and all that. It gets messy. I would keep it to separate logic cubes for sure and have it bump that one out and take this one.
It's actually a really easy way of doing things. If you could use that for any situation. If you're now a criminal in the world, you've done bad, unlawful things in the world, then you have a different logic cube for this is my enemy now, I'm angry at them, or this guy I'm happy about.
Yep. So there you have it. If you guys find it helpful for me to upload this world, I definitely can. I'll take out all the. I don't think I used any DLC actually, except for the fish.
and the astronaut.
Well, yeah, these guys are. I would take these out and just leave Goblin Guy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll just delete these right now. I'll turn this back on, and I'll just share this right after. So yeah, and then here is the nice little visual indicator. So if you need a kind of high level approach of what the trees look like, definitely check out the beginning of the stream when I went over this layout. And yeah, I think that covers it. Really looking forward. If you make a game with this, good chance you'll get featured. Just saying. Just with conversation trees, I've been looking for those for a really long time, and to see those get used more.
Create your game as you play? Any Spark can do it. Spark, activate the portals.